Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Jennifer Taylor, and today we're going to go over how to create a research proposal. So this is a research proposal workshop, and you might think that creating a research proposal would start simply with an outline of the information that you need for the research proposal, but it's actually a six-step process that starts with the meeting of with a client and ends when we have a research proposal that has the decision problem, the research problems, and identifies the deadlines and timelines that we'll be meeting for the project. So let's take a deeper dive into what all that means. So the first step is that you're going to meet with your client. So you have a client. This might be a manager in your organization. This might be a business owner if you're consulting. This could be if you're working on some sort of committee, or you're doing some community service work. This could be, the people who are on the board that you're working with, but you're meeting with someone who is a client, and this client has a decision problem, which means they have a problem that they're trying to solve, but they don't have enough information. So you want to go in and have an interview with this client. And the whole point of this interview is to get background information, to figure out exactly what problem they're trying to solve. And now one of the issues that managers and business owners and people who are working for nonprofits have is that they actually have a multitude of problems, and they try to throw everything at you at once. So they want you to be able to create a research study that can solve all their problems. And that's not how it works. You can't throw everything in the kitchen sink into a research study, because then one, it makes the study too long. When we think about the respondents, the people who are going to have to answer it, it makes it too long. And two, when we're reporting on it, we don't get the richness of insights. It just kind of becomes murky. And really what you want to do is you want to create clarity. So you need to figure out what problem they're trying to solve. And if they have several problems, you have to help them prioritize those problems and figure out which is most important, and then focus on that one particular problem that they have. And it might be one problem, it might be two problems, but I typically wouldn't go more than two problems for a particular research study. But you're really trying to figure out, what problem are you trying to solve? Is it your sales that are dipping? Are you creating these ad campaigns and you want to test two different formats to see which works better? Are you having issues with awareness? Things like that would be the problems that they're trying to solve. When you're asking them about the problems that they're trying to solve, you also want to ask them how they got to this point. Like, how did they end up getting to the point where they're having to solve this problem? What's going on in the environment? What's going on with their organization? And what is the ultimate goal that they want to achieve? When you provide a final report, what is it that they want to be able to walk away with? What do they want to be able to do with the data? And last but not least, you want to know what they're going to do with the information that you provide to them. This is really important, because if they're going to be taking this back to create products or to make decisions for the organization, you want to know how they're going to use the data so that you can help formulate research problems that will provide them with that information in a format that they can use. Okay, so that's step one, meeting with your clients. During this client meeting, your main job is to clarify what the problem is that they're facing. So what is that problem they want to solve? One of the issues that all market researchers face, I face this every single time I go into a research meeting, is providing solutions. As marketers, we're trained to provide solutions. It's what our whole education is based on. It's what we do when we're in the workforce. But when we're in marketing research, our job is not to provide solutions. Our job is to provide information and data. So we have to take that cap of the solution providing cap and put it away and really just focus in on what information do I need to provide them so they can solve these problems. And that's a totally different mindset that is it's really difficult when you first start out in marketing research to be able to catch yourself and then redirect so that you're focusing on this decision problem and the research problem. And like I said, even with time, just because of our training, just because of our nature, it's still easy to fall back into that providing solutions kind of mentality. But that is not our job when we're in market research and when we are trying to create a research proposal. Really what we want to think about is the data that's going to provide them with the best information. And the whole goal is that they can take this data and create strategies to solve their problem. So we want to be thinking about it in terms of data. Okay, so this is your problem. What type of information would help you with that? So if sales are dropping, some things that you can think about is, okay, well, do we have a satisfaction issue? If we have a satisfaction issue, we can measure that, right? We can go back, we can create scales, we can take scales that have already been created and duplicate them and measure satisfaction. And then we can also take that and be able to dive a little bit deeper to figure out what aspects of satisfaction are not being met. So we can, with certain research designs, we can do cause and effect to determine if satisfaction is what's actually causing the decline. And then we can also tease apart what satisfaction is and be able to create research problems that capture the data that would explain what these satisfaction issues are. Is it quality issues? Is it customer service issues? We can kind of jump into that. But again, it's about thinking about the data that's going to provide them the best information. So another thing is that we really need to focus on getting to the root of the problem. So we do this by asking more questions. When they're telling you what their problem is, maybe they have low sales, you want to start asking them why they think they have low sales. And that's, again, going to get you to these issues of satisfaction, quality, things like that. It might be, I've had clients where we've dealt with awareness, where people, they just don't have enough foot traffic coming into their organization, and that's an awareness problem. So why aren't people aware? And so asking them why they want to measure awareness. Do they think they have a problem with their marketing? Do they think they have a problem where maybe it's something like a negative word of mouth or something that's impacting whether or not people move from awareness down on the change to more of a desire. But you also want to know what indications do you have that awareness is a problem. So asking them, what indications do you have that your sales are a problem or that awareness is a problem? Ask them these questions, and that's going to help you really figure out what this decision problem is so that you can then go and create research problems to solve the decision problem. You end the meeting when you can clearly state what their problem is. So at the end of the meeting, you want to clearly articulate, so Mrs. Smith, my understanding of our issue is that you're concerned about sales declining and you would like to figure out why this is happening. So just clearly restate that, get them to agree to it, and then you can move on in the process. So the whole point of the client meeting is so that you can state a decision problem. And the decision problem is this high level problem that your research is trying to solve. So it's a short statement. It clearly states the problem that the client is facing. And it tells the client what to expect. You can either learn about a situation, which is considered discovery, or they can learn what's going to work to solve that problem. And that's more strategy based. And so discovery oriented decision problems answer questions of what and why. Why are we declining in sales? What do people think about our new product offering? It does not solve the problem, but it explains why the problem is happening. So if you know why something is happening, you can then go ahead and create strategies that would help rectify it. But it does, the data that you provide from the study does not provide a solution. It does provide managers with information, and it allows them, like I said, to design that strategy. So a strategy-oriented decision problem answers the question, how? How do we increase the sales of this product? How can we increase awareness of our retail store? And if you think of it in terms of a hypothesis, how do we increase the sales of this product is something where we're going to test, right? We're going to test two different things and see if does one increase sales, or a proxy for sales in a research study might be intention to buy. So we might not be able to test this actual purchase behavior, but we could use a proxy for that, which would be intention to buy. And then we could test different variables to see if we could increase the sales of the product or increase that intention to buy. And so how? It's more about causality. It's more about solving the problem. So this is all about determining new strategies, which of several strategies is the best strategy and which one should be implemented. So two totally different types of decision problems, but these decision problems, identifying the decision problem, determining what it is, will determine everything else about your research project. Because if you're a how and a strategy oriented, that's going to be a totally different research design than a discovery oriented and understanding the what's and whys. So what you really need to know is, what is the decision problem for the client? And you need to know if it's discovery oriented or a strategy oriented. Once you know that, you can state your research problem. And your research problem is taking that decision problem, which is why are my sales declining? Taking that research problem and turning it into several research problems. Usually for each decision problem, we will have 3 to 4 research problems that will answer that decision problem. So these are all research problems, are statements of what will need to be solved to answer the client's question. So we typically start with some sort of brainstorm or diagram, and it's just as many as you think of. And it starts with things like investigate, assess, determine. So if we have something like a decision problem of why are my sales declining, we could start with to assess the customer satisfaction, to determine customer service levels, customer service quality levels. Each of those things would build itself up. By getting the answers to those questions, it will answer this ultimate question, which is that why question. So think of it kind of as a hierarchy. And this is an example of what I mean by think of it as a hierarchy. If you have your discovery-oriented decision problem, for example, this is one we have actually worked on in a previous class, is why is attendance at the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center decreasing? So that's a discovery-oriented decision problem. And we had these 3 research problems. Research problem 1 was we wanted to determine awareness of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center. So attendance is decreasing, and our question was, is it an awareness problem? Do people just not know about it, or is there some other reason why people are not attending? The second thing we wanted to do is assess usage patterns. And our whole goal here was, is attendance decreasing because we're not providing the appropriate services? And then the last one was determine awareness and usage of the services. So we have this usage pattern. What are the different services they're using? And then what's the awareness of these different services? And all that is to try to explain why attendance is decreasing at the Hard of Hearing Center. So with a strategy-oriented decision problem, we're asking, in this case, a question of how do we increase attendance at the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center? So how can we increase it? It's an experiment. If we do X, will that increase it? If we do Y, will that increase it? So we wanted to, one, create a research problem that was investigate the effectiveness of different events. Is one event more effective than another? Are people more satisfied with one event than the other? Research problem number 2 is determine consumer response to 2 proposed email campaigns. You can show consumers 2 different email campaigns, and you can do several things. You can do sensory kind of investigations where you look and see where they're looking on the email to see if they're actually focusing on the information you want them to focus on. You can have them talk about intentions, like their intention to attend after they view that. But the whole point is to determine what their response is going to be. So you can have a lot of different outcomes for that. And the research problem 3 is measure consumer preferences for different service offerings. So do they like these different services? Are they important to them? We can have survey questions that ask you those things. Now, each one of these research problems is going to have a research design behind it. And oftentimes that means a research survey. So a questionnaire can be developed. So each one of these research problems would have several questions. And if they're all going to be answered with a survey, then that survey would be, one survey for all 3 of these research problems. But you might have 4 or 5 questions to answer problem 1. You might have 4 or 5 questions to answer problem 2. And you might have 4 or 5 questions to answer problem 3. And so these research problems are really what tells you what kind of survey do you need to create? What kind of questions should you be asking? It really tells you where to focus. So stating the decision problem is important because it leads you to the research problems. And the research problems are important because they tell you what your survey problems are going to be. But you need to brainstorm all these research problems. So you might actually come up with like 7 or 8. And so the next step, once you've been brainstorming and you have a list of all these different research problems, you really need to select the best research problems. Focus on 3, maybe 4, but typically no more than 4, because then you're looking at 3 to 5 questions per, and surveys begin to get too long at that point. And so the quality of your data, when a survey gets too long, starts to drop. People start dropping out. People start, quit clicking and not reading the material. So your quality of your survey goes down. So these survey questions are designed from the research problems. And you want to identify the 3 to 4 best research problems. And each research problem is going to have multiple survey questions associated with it. So you just have to understand at this point that you have these research problems. You don't have to create the survey questions just yet, because again, we're focusing on the research proposal, but you need to have some idea as to what those survey questions will be in your mind. So answering these questions, what are our research problems and how can they be stated in a sentence? Again, remembering those key words of investigating, assessing. So once you've done those 5 steps, then you can prepare your research proposal. So you've met with your client, you've identified the problem, you can clearly state the decision problem, you can clearly state 3 or 4 really good research problems to answer that decision problem. Now you're ready to write up the proposal. And so your proposal is essentially just an agreement. between you and your client. It explains the scope of the research, what the decision problem is, what your research problems are. Those are all the scope. That's telling your client exactly what you're going to do and what you're going to measure. And that way you're clearly articulating to them the expectations for the research problem. This is the research problem. These are the questions we're going to ask to answer it. We're not answering any other problems but these. So it clearly articulates it. So you have several sections of a research proposal, and it's usually about 1 to 2 pages, but you summarize the background and you summarize what you learned from your client. You clearly state the client's decision problem, and you want to clarify whether it's discovery or strategy oriented. And this is as much for you as it is for them. But it really articulates to them, are we bringing to the table information so that you can make strategies, or are we testing the strategies for you? So it clarifies that when you tell them whether it's discovery or strategy. It states the research problems, and it also provides an overview of the costs and benefits of each research problem. And you want to be able to have a justification as to the final choices for those 3 to 4 research problems. Why is it that you chose those? You're also going to have a section on your population and subgroups. Now, this is tied directly to your sample. So your sample is the population of people that you want to take this study. So for example, if you are studying customer satisfaction, maybe you only want to focus on people who have actually used your product or visited your business. That would be your population. You don't want to have people who've never visited your store or your location or your business if you're interested in understanding their satisfaction. So your population is that narrow group of people that you want to study. Who are these people? Who's going to be the respondent? Is it customers, potential customers? Is it students, doctors? Is it ice cream eaters? Is it cinema customers? Who are these people? Be specific as possible. The more specific you are now, the easier it becomes later when you have to decide how you are going to sample that population. So describe these groups in detail. And then the last part of a research proposal is outlining your action items. This is just a bulleted list of what the major milestones are, when you expect to provide them with a survey instrument draft so they can review it and approve it, when you expect to have the survey online so that they can give you final approval, when you expect to do data collection, when you expect to do analysis, and then of course when you expect to give the final project and presentation. So you need to have all those outlined in your client presentation. So I have look at the syllabus for these important dates, but that's for a previous class when we actually did a client meeting. So if you're in a class and we're a face-to-face class, then look at your syllabus for these important dates. If this is an online class, one of my 7-week online classes, we do not do client reports in that class, so you won't have to worry about that. All right, but that was how to create a research proposal. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. You can do it in the comments of this YouTube video, or you can email me. But thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.